going to derive that equation, and then and also okay. What is that? Adiabatic equation. It is adiabatic equation, and that equation, as you know, everybody, that is PV to the power of gamma is constant. PV to the power of gamma is constant. P is pressure, V is volume, and gamma, you know, it is the ratio between Cp and Cv. And one more equation is also there, that is Tv to the power of gamma minus 1 is constant. This is in terms of pressure and volume, and this is in terms of temperature and volume. Okay, na? So this is about the equation. Just you remember the equation, that's it, okay? And wait a minute, ma. Now I am starting with the second law of thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics. So before starting the second law of thermodynamics, you have to know about two more new terms which are introduced in the second law of thermodynamics. One is called as what is it? One is called as spontaneous process, and the second one is that is a heat engine. Okay. So I'm starting with the first one, that is spontaneous process. So what is a spontaneous process? A spontaneous process is nothing but if a process occurs spontaneously, it is called as a spontaneous process. Is it correct? Is it correct, ma? No, not at all. Because a spontaneous process is nothing but it is a process if it occurs without taking any external help or without taking any external agency, then you can say that process is occurring spontaneously, and that is called as a spontaneous process. So what is a spontaneous process? If a process occurs without taking any external help, that is called as a spontaneous process. If you want, you can write the definition over there. So what is spontaneous process? If a process occurs without taking any external help, without any external agency, that process is called as a spontaneous process. Now you can say, give some examples for the spontaneous process. What are the examples? That means while occurring that process has to occur without taking any external help. Like if you take water, very good, very good, very good. So, Roshni, right? Good. You are giving good answers, ma. So, see, first one, if you take water, always water occurs. So water flows from uphills to the downhills spontaneously without taking any external help. That is the first one. And the second one is if you take gas, always gas expands from high pressure region to the low pressure region spontaneously. If you take heat, always always heat flows from hot body to cold body spontaneously. All these three are the best examples. Income, you can write all those things, okay? And all these three are the best examples for this spontaneous process. Why? Because these three processes occurs without taking any external help or external agency. So therefore, those processes, they are called as a spontaneous process. But if you take these processes, like if you take water, heat, and gas, all these processes occurs naturally in the nature. Is it right? So you can say that a spontaneous process is always a naturally occurring process, or you can say it is a natural process. A spontaneous process is nothing but it is a natural process because it occurs naturally in the nature. Therefore, it is a natural process. And without taking any external help, can you reverse these processes? No, not at all. For example, if you take water, water is flowing from uphills to downhills spontaneously, but without taking any external help, that water will not flow from the downhills to the uphills. Is it right? So without taking any external help, these processes cannot be reversed. Therefore, you can say that a spontaneous process is an irreversible process. A spontaneous process is an irreversible process because we can't reverse those processes without taking any external help. This is called as the first different form of the second law of thermodynamics, which says that a spontaneous process is always an irreversible process because it cannot be reversed without taking any external help. This is called as, what is the one? This is called as the first different form of the second law of thermodynamics, which says that always all the spontaneous processes are naturally occurring processes and they are completely irreversible. They are completely irreversible. Or simply in simple sentences, you can write a spontaneous process is an irreversible process. This sentence you can write it down. A spontaneous process is an irreversible process. A spontaneous process is an irreversible process. This is called as the first different form of the second law of thermodynamics, because in the first law also we have said so many different forms of the first law of thermodynamics, like the second law also. So the first different form of the second law of thermodynamics says that a spontaneous process is an irreversible process. That means from the spontaneous process, you said a different form of the first law of thermodynamics. Then if you see the second one, that is the heat engine. Heat engine. Heat engine or heat machine, both are similar only. What is heat engine or heat machine? This heat engine always, it converts heat into work. So a machine which converts heat into work is always called as heat engine. A machine which converts heat into work. Heat into work. It is said to be a heat engine. That means always this heat machine or heat engine, what it will do, simply it converts heat into work, and that process is, that engine is called as heat engine. And during this conversion of heat into work, this heat engine, what it will do, you have to know this one. This is very important one to remember. So during the conversion of heat into work, what it will do, simply, if this is the heat engine, I'm drawing the structure of this heat engine in simple way. This is heat engine or heat machine. Assume that this is a heat engine. So during the conversion of heat into work, this heat engine, first it absorbs heat from the high temperature reservoir. First it absorbs some part of the heat from the high temperature reservoir. And this high temperature reservoir is called, this is called as a high temperature reservoir. And generally in thermodynamics, this high temperature reservoir is called as a source. That means this heat engine, first it absorbs heat from the source, which is at high temperature. Is it right? That high temperature reservoir is called as source. So this heat engine absorbs heat from the high temperature reservoir called as a source. And after absorbing the heat, what will happen? The heat engine converts only a part of the absorbed heat into work. Listen. After absorbing the heat, this heat engine converts only a part of the heat, but not complete heat. Only a part of the heat will be converted into work. Only a part of the heat will be converted into work. And the remaining heat will be there now in this heat engine. So this heat engine, what it will do, simply transfer the remaining heat. It transfers the remaining heat to the low temperature reservoir. It transfers the heat to the low temperature reservoir, and this is called as a sink. This is called as a sink. Right? So you mainly This part is very important one. What that heat engine is doing and how it is converting the heat into work, you have to know. So during the conversion of heat into work, this heat engine first it absorbs heat from the source, and after absorbing the heat, only a part of the absorbed heat will be converted into work, and the remaining heat will be transferred to the low temperature reservoir, which is called as a sink. Okay, now assume that the source is at high temperature, so you can take this source temperature as T2 degrees centigrade, and the sink temperature, which is a low temperature, it is T1 degrees centigrade. So whenever you are writing the sink temperature, you have to think that it is only T1 degrees centigrade. If T1 degrees centigrade is given, you have to say that this is a sink temperature in the second law. And T2 is there, then it is said to be the source temperature, because always source is at high temperature, right? And assume that here this heat engine is absorbed Q2 calorie of heat. Absorb, how much heat is absorbed from the source? Q2 calorie of heat is absorbed from the source, and a part of the absorbed heat is converted into work. And assume that here this is transferred Q1 calorie of heat to the low temperature reservoir. So whenever I am writing Q2, what you have to think that the heat engine is absorbed Q2 calorie of heat from the source. Absorbed. Q2 is absorbed heat and Q1 is transferred heat. Q1 is transferred heat to the sink. Therefore, how you will calculate W here in terms of heat? Very good, very good. Somebody they wrote. So how you will calculate, because Q2 is absorbed, Q1 is transferred, the remaining will be, it is Q2 minus Q1. This is one of the very important one. Q2 minus Q1, right? And in the same way, if you want to write the same equation in terms of temperature, T2 minus T2 minus it is T. So like this, you can calculate what is the work done from the heat engine. So by looking at this diagram, you can say that means here the heat engine is not converting complete heat into work. Therefore, the second form of the second law of thermodynamics says that no heat engine converts complete heat into work. Only a part of the absorbed heat will be converted into work without taking any external help. If you take external help, automatically you can convert a complete heat into work. But without taking any external help, no heat engine converts complete heat into work. Only a part of the absorbed heat will be converted into work. Is it right? So this is called as the second different form of the second law of thermodynamics. So what is the first different form of second law of thermodynamics? It says that all the spontaneous processes are irreversible processes because they cannot be reversed without taking any external help. And the second form says that no heat engine converts complete heat into work. So just you remember the values. What is T2, what is T1, what is Q2, and what is Q. Okay, this is about the two terms which are introduced in the second law, the spontaneous process and heat engine. From that, we have derived two different forms of the second law of thermodynamics. Okay, now? And the third one, from this only I can say the third different form also. The third different form, it says that the always heat flows from hot body to cold body spontaneously. Heat flows from hot body to cold body spontaneously without taking any external help. But without the external help, heat will not flow from hot body to cold body. Without the external help, heat will not flow from hot body to cold body. That is called as the third different form of second law of thermodynamics. Now I said three different forms. So what is the heat? In terms of heat also you can say. What you have to say that without taking any external help, heat flows from the hot body to cold body spontaneously. But without the external help, heat will not flow from cold body. Sorry, I said wrongly. So heat will not flow from cold body to hot body. It flows only from hot body to cold body, but without the external help, heat will not flow from cold body to hot body. And that is called as the third different form of the second law of thermodynamics. Okay, right? So this is about the three different forms of the second law of thermodynamics. Now I'll start the second one, that is Carnot cycle. I don't think so that Carnot cycle part is there in your syllabus or not, but I'll tell you in a simple way. So, cycle and it is a cyclic process. In that, what will happen? System comes to its initial state by passing through a number of processes, and that process is called as the cyclic process. So, now I am saying about the Carnot cycle. So Carnot, he is a scientist, so he proved that the efficiency of the heat engine depends only on the temperature. So he discussed about the efficiency of the heat engine. He discussed about the efficiency of the heat engine, and using some concepts, then he derived the efficiency of the heat engine. Later he said that that efficiency of the heat engine depends only on the temperature. It depends only on the, using that concept, finally he derived the equation also, which is a very longest or biggest derivation in the entire part of thermodynamics. Okay, now I am not going to derive those equations because అది derive చేసుకుంటూ పోతే almost it takes 45 minutes for me. Okay, so I'll tell you the important things. The important things that you have to remember in this Carnot cycle. So what he did, he proved that efficiency depends only on the efficiency of the heat engine. Efficiency of the heat engine depends only on the temperature. So to prove that, he proposed a hypothetical heat engine. It is not a real heat engine. It is hypothetical, or you can say imaginary heat engine. So using that hypothetical heat engine, he proved that efficiency depends only on the temperature of a heat engine. Okay, I'll tell you the features of this Carnot cycle, because I think most of the students, they don't know about the features of this heat engine. Very interesting one. So what he proved, adi guttupettukovala, he proved that efficiency. You write that sentence. What this fellow is proved. This fellow proved that efficiency of the heat engine depends only on the temperature. Okay. When you see the features of this Carnot cycle, are the heat engine used in this Carnot cycle? Because he used only hypothetical heat engine. You have to see the features of that heat engine, what he used. And mainly that heat engine, I'm writing the heat engine. Is it clear, ma? Are you able to understand? Are you understanding, ma? Okay, heat engine. So the features of this heat engine. So he used a hypothetical heat engine or imaginary heat engine in the Carnot cycle, and that heat engine is, it is a cylinder. This is a cylinder, because I told you the system which is used in the thermodynamics. Okay, na? So it is a cylinder in which 1 mole of ideal gas is taken. 1 mole of ideal gas is taken, and it is closed by a piston like this. And it is closed by a piston like this. So except the bottom, except this bottom, the rest of the parts of the cylinder, the rest of the parts of the cylinder are completely insulated. The rest of the parts of the cylinder are completely insulated like this. The rest of the parts of the cylinder are completely insulated. So that what will happen here, the heat will be exchanged between the system and the surroundings, because these are surroundings and this is the system. అంటే ఎట్లా అవుతుంది ఈ సిస్టమ్ కి సరౌండింగ్స్ కి మధ్య హీట్ ఎక్స్చేంజ్ ఎలా అవుతుంది అంటే ఓన్లీ ఫ్రమ్ ది బాటమ్, or through the bottom only the heat will be exchanged between the system and the surroundings. Because the remaining parts of the cylinder are completely insulated, the heat will be exchanged between the system and the surroundings through this bottom only. Through the bottom only heat will be exchanged. And the second one is, in this all the changes takes place or occurs reversible. He considers, because a reversible process is unreal process. For that reason only he proposed hypothetical but not the real one. And he considered that all the changes are taking place, whatever the changes that are taking place in this system, it is taking place by reversibly. This is the second point. And the third one is this heat engine. Generally, any heat engine consists of two reservoirs. One is at high temperature source, and the second one is low temperature reservoir, that is sink. Even this heat engine also consists of two reservoirs. Consists of two reservoirs. One is a source. The second one is it is a sink. One is a source and second one is a sink. And in this heat engine, two operations will be carried. This question may ask you in the entrance exam. So in this heat engine, two operations will be carried out. One is called as isothermal operation, and the second one is the adiabatic operation. How many operations will be carried out in the heat engine? One is isothermal operation, and the second one is adiabatic operation. Adiabatic operation. And see, in order to occur this isothermal operation, always this cylinder will be placed in the source or sink. So that always the source or sink, what it will do, simply it remains there. So it acts as thermostat, and always this the temperature of the gas kept constant. Therefore, the process is called as isothermal operation. Therefore, here this source or sink acts as thermostat. And what is the use of thermostat? Did you see any thermostat in the laboratory in any college? Thermostat. It looks like a dabba like this. An iron dabba or iron box. In this, if you keep any conical flask or any reagent bottle or anything in the thermostat, what it will do? It remains the temperature of the system constant. Therefore, this process is called as isothermal operation. Okay. So here what will happen when this cylinder is placed in the source or sink? What will happen? The temperature of this gas remains constant. The operation is called as isothermal operation. And this operation, two things will happen. The gas expands and gas compresses. Gas expands and gas compresses. When the cylinder is placed in the source, gas expands. When the cylinder is placed in the sink, automatically gas compresses. Why? Because by absorbing the heat only, gas expands. So when you place this as a cylinder in the source, because they always this 1 mole of gas absorbs heat only from the source. After absorbing the heat, what will happen? The gas expands. So for the expansion of the gas in the isothermal operation, this cylinder should be placed in the source. For the compression means because some of the heat is transferred to the sink. Whenever gas transfers, automatically it compresses. So for the compression of the gas in this isothermal operation, the cylinder will be placed in the sink. This is the second one. And for the adiabatic operation, what is adiabatic operation? Adiabatic process in that there is no exchange of heat between the system and the surroundings. Therefore, what will happen here? The cylinder is completely insulated for this adiabatic operation. For the adiabatic operation, the cylinder will be completely insulated. So that there should not be any exchange of heat between the system and the surroundings, and the process is called as adiabatic operation. In this also two things will happen. Gas expands and gas compresses. In both the cases, the cylinder has to be placed only in the insulator. For both the cases, the cylinder has to place in the insulator only. And for that only, you'll get the adiabatic operation. This is the second one. Okay, na? And here, a complete Carnot cycle. Consists of four sub-operations. One is isothermal reversible, because all the chains are taking place reversible. Isothermal reversible expansion. And the second one is isothermal reversible, adiabatic reversible expansion. The third one is isothermal reversible compression. And the fourth one is adiabatic reversible compression. Fourth one is adiabatic reversible compression. Because in both the operations, two things are happening. Expanding and compression is taking place, and therefore you'll get four sub-operations in a complete Carnot cycle. When you plot the graph, this is the important one. When you plot the graph, pressure versus volume of these four processes, it gives a complete Carnot cycle like this. It gives a complete Carnot cycle, A, B, C, D. The process goes like this. Therefore, the system comes to its initial state again. Therefore, this process is called as a cyclic process. And this AB curve, AB is there now. This AB curve explains about the isothermal reversible expansion. And this BC curve explains about the adiabatic reversible expansion. And this CD curve explains about the isothermal reversible compression. And this DA curve explains about the adiabatic reversible compression. Okay. See here, I'll tell you the simple things to remember so that you can write the equations. Is it any need to write the equations here? Okay, no problem. Finally, I'll tell you that just you remember all these things which are taking place in the Carnot cycle. And using this cycle, then he derived an equation that is about the efficiency of the heat engine, a very biggest derivation. And in each and every process, what you'll calculate W. Here you'll calculate W1, this is W2, W3, and this is W4. By combining all these works, totally you'll get total work done. After that, you'll calculate efficiency. What is the equation for the efficiency? Efficiency newton is equal to, represented by some symbol newton. This is called as newton. Newton is T2 minus T1 by efficiency. Newton is how much? It is T2 minus T1. So he proved that efficiency of the heat engine depends only on the temperature. So this is the main equation. After doing all these things, finally what you'll get a small equation that shows that the efficiency of the heat engine depends only on the temperature. Okay, that equation is Newton is equal to T2 minus T1 by T2. And one more equation also I'll tell you. Three equations you have to remember. The second, this is the first one. The second one is you have to remember about W by Q2. Using this equation only, you'll convert this equation in terms of temperature. And the third one is Q2, you know. What is Q2 here? This is the temperature of the source. Temperature, heat absorbed, not temperature, it is heat absorbed from the source. And the third one is Newton is equal to Q2 minus Q1 by Q2. Because what is W from the heat engine? W is how much? Q2 minus Q. In place of this W, if you substitute a value, you'll get third equation. Q2 minus Q1 by Q. So these are the three very important equations that we have to remember, because important one for the problem's purpose. Okay. And here, one thing I have to say, the efficiency of any heat engine, it is not equal to 100%. The efficiency of heat engine is not equal to 100%. It is always less than 100%, or you can say it is less than 1. Because if you remove the percentage, you will get this is one of the very important things that you have to remember. Why I am saying that the efficiency of the heat engine is not 100%. If it is 100%, what it indicates, the total amount of heat which is absorbed by the heat engine, it will be completely converted into work. But what second law of thermodynamics says that the no heat engine converts complete heat into work. No heat engine converts complete heat into work. Therefore, the efficiency of any heat engine, it should not be 100%. Always it is less than 100%, indicates that no heat engine is converting complete heat into work. Okay, na? So Newton is less than 100%, or Newton is less than 1. Okay, this is the first point you have to remember in the heat engine, Carnot cycle. And the second one is the temperature difference is very high. The temperature difference is very high between T1 and T2. between T1 and T2. T1 T2 మధ్య డిఫరెన్స్ ఎక్కువగా ఉంది అనుకోండి, లైక్ ఇది 0 degree centigrade ఉంది, ఇది 400 degree centigrade ఉంది అనుకోండి. This is T2 and this is T1. Higher difference is there, then what will happen? More amount of heat will be converted into work. More amount of heat will be converted into work. Therefore, the efficiency also increases. Even though it is not giving 100%, but efficiency increases towards 100%. Okay, na? So this is the second point. That means in the heat engine, in the Carnot cycle, if the temperature difference is very high between the two temperatures, between two reservoirs, more amount of heat will be converted into work. This is the second thing that you have to remember in the Carnot cycle. Problems మనం లాస్ట్ లో డిస్కస్ చేద్దాం, ఇప్పుడు డిస్కస్ చేద్దామా ఒకటి. ఓకే, I'll tell you one problem. Write down. You can create the problems. A steam engine, and a heat engine, and if engine comes in the problem, that is only for second law, and you are calculating efficiency. Okay, na? Write down. A steam engine is operating between a steam engine is operating between 0 degree centigrade and 400 degree centigrade. 400 degree centigrade. Calculate the work done. So calculate the efficiency of the heat engine. Calculate the efficiency of the heat engine. What they have given. So you have to use which equation? You have to use first equation, second equation, or third equation. Only temperature is given. Simply you use the first equation and you can calculate. I'll tell you how the different problems comes based on these three equations. Okay, na? The first one, what they have given, the first temperature is lower temperature. It is 0 degree centigrade. Convert this one into Kelvins, 273 Kelvin. And the second one, T2 degree centigrade. It is 400 degree centigrade. That means 400 plus 273. That is how much? It is 673 Kelvin. So what is Newton? Newton is nothing but T2 minus T1 by T2. So what you can write here? Newton is equal to 673 minus 273 by 673. Newton is how much? It is 400 by, what is the answer, ma? 400 by 673. 400 by 673. Anybody can write on the screen? 0.59, good. So Newton is how much? 0.59. You say only it is 0.59, you have to mention this efficiency. Whenever you are calculating that efficiency, you have to mention this, you have to express this efficiency in terms of percentage. Okay, na? So 0.594 and how much percentage is there? 59.4%. Newton is how much is there? 59.4%. This indicates what? You can say this value in sentence. That means only 59% of heat is converted into work. Only 59% among of 100%, only 59% of heat is converted into work. That is Newton is 59.4%. Okay, na? So ఇక్కడ మీరు ఏం చేయొచ్చు? In the second problem, I'll tell you one more thing also. But the second one, the second type of problem. Calculate the work done if your steam engine is operating between 50 degrees centigrade and 350 degrees centigrade, during which ఇలానే ఉంటాయి ప్రాబ్లమ్స్, డ్యూరింగ్ విచ్ కొంచెం కాంప్లికేటెడ్ వర్డ్స్ యూజ్ చేస్తారు. ఐఎమ్ యూజింగ్ ఏ సింపుల్ వర్డ్స్ హియర్. డ్యూరింగ్ విచ్ The engine absorbs 1 kilocalorie of heat, during which it absorbs 1 kilo. So don't write 1 kilocalorie. You can write 470 kilocalorie of heat. 470 kilocalorie of heat. Kilocalorie of heat. How you will calculate this one? How you will calculate? What you have to calculate here? You have to calculate W. And provided that they have given Q2 value and also given two temperatures values. So you have to use which equation? The relation between these two. Alright, you have to use this equation, that is T2 minus T1 by T2 is equals to, it is T1 degree centigrade is 50, yeah? 50, it is how much? 250 plus 273? 323 Kelvin. And this is 350 degree centigrade, 350 plus 273? 623. Antena? Or 523? Right, no. It is 623 Kelvin. And you have to use this equation. Simply use this equation. This is one of the very important equations. That means in the problem, they may ask you about to calculate the work done like this I have given. And they may ask you about the Q2 also by giving the value for the W and two temperatures. Okay, na? And what you can write here, T2 is how much? It is 623 minus 323 by 623 is equal. So what is W? You have to calculate. Q2 is 470. After calculating this one, what do you get, ma? This is 300 by 623 into 470. What is the answer? What is the answer? Do it, ma. You can do it, na? What is that? 226. Is it 226? Correct only, no? 226. So here Q2 value is given in kilocalorie. Q2 value is given in kilocalorie. You write the same units for the work. That is 226, 226. Okay. 224 or some 0.324. Okay, 226. You write that value also 0.324 kilocalories. Okay, na? So this is about the second type of problem. And the third type of problem in that the Q2 value will be given, W value will be given, you have to calculate Q2. But you remember this equation. In the problem, they will give you two temperatures, either you have to calculate W or Q2 provided that one value will be given in the problem. Okay, na? So this is about the second one. And third one. Third problem is, I'll tell you the problem. A steam engine is operating between, am I going fast? A steam engine is operating between, a steam engine is operating between 0 degree centigrade and 100 degree centigrade. 0 degree centigrade and 100 degree centigrade. First one, calculate the efficiency. Second one, if the heat engine absorbs 1 calorie of heat, if heat engine absorbs 1 calorie of heat, what is the work done? What is the work done? Third, how much amount of heat is transferred to the sink? how much amount of heat is transferred to the sink. Just you only tell me the first one. Efficiency చెప్పండి. Second one, third one calculate చేయాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు. Directly you can give the answers. Okay na? Calculate the efficiency, converting the temperatures in terms of Kelvin and substitute it and calculate it. Okay? Ramaya, what will you do? So the worker, sorry, efficiency is 0.3. Efficiency, how much you have got? It is 0.3. This is the first one is over. You can say it is 30%. Mention the efficiency in terms of 30 and so in terms of percentage. Okay, na? What you can write? Then what is W? What is W? Is there any need to calculate the W here? 0.26, huh? Somebody they are saying 0.3 is 0.3 is correct or 0.26 is correct? 0.26 is what are you saying? Huh? MPC students, huh? 0.26. It is 26%. 0.26. Okay. So whatever the answer that may be, correct answer to ask only. 0.26 is the answer, and 26% of heat is converted into work, and the remaining heat is transferred to the sink. What is W? What is W? Very good. Same thing because T2 minus T1 by T2 is W by Q2. And how much you have got this one? It is 0.26. And what is Q2? It is 1. W simply you can say 0.26 calories. Blindly you can say because Q2 is 1 is given. Simply you can say for 1 some value is given, multiply that value. If 1 is given, simply you can say 0.26 calories. And the third one, what is Q1? How much amount of heat is transferred? You have to calculate Q1 here. What is Q1? What is Q1? What is Q1, ma? Here, what happened here? Only 26% of heat is converted into work. And 100% absorbed చేసుకున్నప్పుడు it has converted only 26% of heat into work. The remaining heat will be transferred to sink only, no? So from the 100, you subtract, you subtract the 26% and you can get Q1 value. This is simple one. Therefore, Q1 is how much? 100% minus 26%, you will get 0.74, or you can write it is 74%, or you can write it is 0.74. Both are similar. That's it. No need of calculating anything because always any heat engine absorbs 100%. And low on 100% absorb చేసుకుంటుంది. But in that only this part of the heat is converted into work. The remaining 74% is transferred only to the sink. That means this indicates that the heat engine is not converting complete heat into work. So this is about the efficiency and the problems based on efficiency. Okay. The next one. The next one is about entropy. This very, very important property of the thermodynamics, that is entropy, represented by the symbol S. Okay, na? What is entropy? Just I'll tell you the equation for the entropy first of all. Because entropy is a state function. All the thermodynamic properties are state functions. So we can calculate only change but not the absolute value. And what is the equation for the entropy? Delta S is equal to Q reverse by T. Because from the Carnot cycle only, we are deriving this equation. We have derived this equation from the Carnot cycle. And as you know, in the Carnot cycle, all the changes are taking place reversibly. So that's what I have written. This is reversible here. That means here, heat absorbed by the system takes place reversibly. Heat absorbed by a system takes place reversibly, and this is the equation for the delta S. That is change in entropy. This is called as a change in. And for the small changes, you can write one more equation. ds delta becomes a d. Correspond is for the state functions. This is the dou q reverse by t. So what is the definition of entropy? Very simple definition. It is the ratio between heat and temperature at which the system absorbs heat, or heat is absorbed by the system. What is entropy? It is the ratio between heat and temperature. Absolute temperature we have, right? Absolute temperature, that is in Kelvins. That is in Kelvins. So it is a ratio between heat and temperature, heat and absolute temperature at which heat is absorbed by the system. Okay, so this is about and the units. If you see in CGS, we can write it as calorie per Kelvin, because heat is calories and temperature is in Kelvin. Calorie per Kelvin in SI, you can write it as it is joules per Kelvin. These are the units of the entropy. Okay, now you have to see the how you are going to calculate this change in entropy in different processes, because we have 5 processes. From the cyclic process only you have derived this equation. So the remaining is 4 processes are there, and the 4 processes how you will calculate this change in entropy you have to see. Okay. What is the first one? That is so in this process already we have calculated the work done, and that work done equation is W is equal to how much? Minus 2.303 nRT log V2 by, okay. And always, as you know that from the first law of thermodynamics, W is directly proportional to. So in place of this W, I can replace that value by Q. The changes are taking place reversibly, you can write. Because we have calculated this work done only in the isothermal process where the gas expanded reversibly. Okay, na? So you can write reversible here. Q reversible is how much? Minus 2.303 nRT log V2 by V1. So now from this equation, you have to convert this equation in terms of delta S. You are calculating change in entropy. That is delta S you are calculating. What is delta S of this equation? From that equation, how you will calculate delta S? Simply, you take this temperature value to the left hand side. Simply, you take the temperature value to the left hand side, Q reverse by T, and this is leftover values are nR log V2 by. What is Q reverse by T? From the definition of change in entropy, delta S is. So a small change will be there between this work done and the change in entropy. And that equation is, everybody has to remember this equation, one of the very important equation. Delta S is how much? Minus 2.303 nR, no T. Minus 2.303 nR log V2 by V1. Or if you want to write this equation in terms of pressure, you can write it as delta S is minus 2.303 nR log V1 by. Okay. The second one, that is adiabatic process. So in the adiabatic process, since what is entropy, from the entropy, ds is how much? Dou q reverse by t. Right? And in the adiabatic process, always dou q is 0, or you can write dou q reverse is also 0. Whatever the heat it is absorbed, reversible or irreversibly in the adiabatic process, that is completely 0 because there is no exchange of heat. When you substitute the value here, ds is how much? Substitute the value here 0 by t. So ds is 0. Or you can say this is for small changes. For the large changes, you can say delta S is equal to 0. Indicates what? So when delta S is 0, S of the system, is it constant, 0 or something else? What is S? The entropy of the system in this process. Because I told you, in any process, if the change is 0, some value, constant. Always S of the system remains a constant. The constant the change will be 0. I told you, in the previous class also, if one property remains a constant, change in that property always it is a 0. Okay, changing the properties, changing the entropy is 0. This is one of the very, very important entrance question. Always in the adiabatic process, the entropy of the system remains a constant because the change in entropy is 0. Change in entropy is 0, the delta S is 0, ds is 0, and the entropy of the system remains a constant. This is about the change in entropy in adiabatic process. Okay, na? Next, the isochoric and isobaric processes equations are not important, but I'll tell you to remember because these things will come in the MSc also, so that that will be easy for you also. Okay, the third one, isochoric process. Directly, I'm writing the equation. I'm not going to read it because it is somewhat a bigger derivation. It is 2.303 NCV log. Isochoric and a constant volume and a CV. Log T2 by T. Log T2 by T. And the fourth one, isobaric. Delta S is equals, it is 2.303 NCP log. Same equation you can write by changing the molar heat capacity value. Why I am keeping some equations in the box? Because those are the important ones to remember for the exam, for the entrance. Okay. This is about the calculation of change in entropy in different processes. Now, what we have to do is we have to define the fourth different form of the second law of thermodynamics. Till now, the three different forms of the second law of thermodynamics. Now, what we are doing, we are going to do about the second law of thermodynamics in terms of entropy. In terms of entropy also, you can define the second law of thermodynamics. That one is okay. A very, very important one. I think till now nobody knows about this one. Calculation of a change in entropy. Change in entropy of the universe. In reversible and irreversible processes. What you are calculating now? Till now, in different processes, you have calculated the change in entropy of the system only. Delta S of the system only you have calculated in isothermal, in adiabatic, in isochoric, and in isobaric. But now, what you are doing? See, how much you have improved. Now you are going to calculate the change in entropy of the total universe is calculated. Then how you will calculate the change in entropy of the universe? First, we will start with the first process, that is a reversible process. Reversible. Okay. So always in this process occurs in a many number of steps or infinite number of steps, and takes place very, very slowly because it is taking place in an infinite number of steps. It occurs very slowly, therefore it takes infinite time. You can't see the infinite time. That process is called as unreal process, and all the changes can be reversed at each and every step of the process. The piston remains in the equilibrium state, or you can say system remains in the equilibrium state. Okay, na? Right. See, now listen carefully. This is somewhat a typical one, but if you understand, okay, it is very easy. Okay, na? Assume that a system absorbed Q calorie of heat. A system absorbed Q calorie of heat isothermally and reversibly. A system absorbed Q calorie of heat reversibly. Absorbed Q calorie of heat reversibly. Okay, na? So here system absorbed the heat from the surroundings. How much heat is absorbed? It is Q calorie of heat. Now you can write the change in entropy of the system. Change in entropy means it is delta S. Therefore, delta S of system now we are calculating. System is equals to how much? You know the equation for the delta S? It is Q and reverse by T. Because here system absorbed the heat, therefore Q is positive or negative? System absorbed the heat from the surroundings. Is it right? Therefore, if it is absorbed, therefore you can write it is positive. Therefore, this becomes a positive. It is a positive value. Right? And whatever the amount of which is absorbed by the system, it will be lost by the same amount of heat is lost by the surroundings, because surroundings is only transferring the heat to the system. Therefore, the same amount of heat is lost by the surroundings. Therefore, the change in entropy of the surroundings Here, surroundings liberated heat. Therefore, Q becomes. Therefore, how you will calculate change in entropy of the surroundings? The same equation you can write Q reversed by T, but the value is negative. Therefore, it is negative. Now, you calculate, but you have to calculate the change in entropy of the universe. Why you are calculating the change in entropy of the system and the change in entropy of the surroundings? At the beginning of the class, I told you, according to thermodynamics, universe is consisting of only two components. One is the system and the surroundings. If you calculate the change in entropy of the system and the change in entropy of the surroundings, combine it, by that we will calculate the change in entropy of the universe. And the interesting one, if you know the change in entropy of the system, entropy of the surroundings, combine it, you'll get the change in entropy of the universe. That is the beauty of this entropy. Okay, now I'm writing C here. Therefore, change in entropy of the universe, that is delta S of universe. Universe according to thermodynamics, it is consisting of only two components, delta S of system. You combine it with the delta S of surroundings, thereby you can calculate. Therefore, what you can write here, delta S of universe is Q reverse by T, and here this is minus Q reverse by T. Both gets cancelled. So simply what you can write, delta S of a universe is 0. Delta S of universe is how much? It is 0. If it is 0, change is 0. The entropy of the universe is a constant. the changes are taking place reversibly, the entropy of the universe is constant. Entropy of the universe is constant, or you can say delta S of universe is the change in entropy of the universe and the reversible process. And here we have to remember one point that what I said, in the reversible process, all the things are taking place in a many number of steps. In each step, piston remains in the equilibrium state. So whenever you are discussing about the reversible changes, you have to think that this is at equilibrium. You have to think that this is at equilibrium. Whenever you are studying or discussing anything about the reversible changes, you have to think that we are discussing about the changes at equilibrium. At equilibrium, you have to mention. So this delta S universe or S constant is at everybody now you write at equilibrium. Delta S of universe is 0. And S of universe is constant. This is one of the very important equation for the entrance purpose. Delta S of universe is 0 and S of universe is constant. These are the spontaneous, while discussing about the conditions at spontaneity, we will discuss all those things. And equilibrium దగ్గర ఎలా ఉంటుంది, and in the spontaneous process also we will calculate the change in entropy. Now we are going to calculate the change in entropy of the universe and the irreversible process, and at the simultaneously we will calculate the same thing in the spontaneous process. Okay. Now, the second one is it is irreversible process. I'm not going to derive all those things more because it is somewhat bigger derivation because time is going on. No? So I'll tell you the equation how you have to calculate. After calculating the change in entropy of the universe, you'll get the delta S of universe in this equation, this process as greater than 0. Delta S universe you'll get this value. In the reversible process, you have got that value as 0, but here you'll get the value as delta S of universe is greater than 0. If delta S of the universe is greater than 0, that indicates what? Delta S of the universe, is it increases or positive or negative? If it is greater than 0, చాలా మందికి తెలియదు. Most of the students, they don't know what is greater than 0. Is it positive or negative? Somebody they will get that out also. It is positive. If it is less than 0, if it is less than 0, it is negative. Okay, na? Delta S of the universe is positive. That means S of the universe is positive. That indicates increases. One of the very important one. From this only, now we are going to explain about the second law of thermodynamics in terms of entropy. Alla cheptam chudandi, but in this irreversible process, the entropy of the universe is increasing because it is getting a positive value. That indicates that in the universe, the entropy in the irreversible process, the entropy of the universe increases. But if you see the first different form of the second law of thermodynamics, which says that all the spontaneous processes are irreversible process. Therefore, in the irreversible process, entropy of the universe is increasing. Listen, this is typical one. కొంచెం గుర్తుపెట్టుకుంటున్నాను. A spontaneous process is an irreversible process. In the irreversible process, entropy is increasing. Therefore, in the spontaneous process also, entropy of the universe increases. Entropy of the universe, because a spontaneous process is an irreversible process. If it is increasing, the same thing will happen only in the spontaneous process also. And a spontaneous process is a natural process, right? Naturally occurring process. Therefore, in the natural process also, the entropy of the universe increases. In the natural process also, the entropy of the universe increases. All right. And if you see in the spontaneous process or in the nature, what will happen? Each and every spontaneous process occurs naturally and continuously. Naturally and continuously. Like if you take water, always, all the time, the water flows from uphills to downhills continuously. That means in the nature, a natural process occurs continuously. That means what you can say. That means if the natural process is occurring continuously, what will happen? The entropy of the universe also increases continuously in the spontaneous process. The entropy of the universe also increases continuously, day by day it increases, day by day it increases continuously. But at the end, what will happen? And the universe at the end, what will happen? It reaches the maximum. It reaches the maximum value, and that is called as the fourth different form of the second law of thermodynamics, which says that the entropy of the universe increases continuously, and at the end, it reaches the maximum value. And that is called as the fourth different form using this irreversible process. ఇప్పుడు అర్థమైందా ఏమైంది in the irreversible process entropy of the universe is increasing since an irreversible process is a spontaneous process. In the spontaneous process the spontaneous process is also accompanied by increase of entropy, and as you know that each and every natural process is a spontaneous process, and in the nature, in the universe, in the nature or in the universe, what is happening, each and every natural process is occurring continuously. Therefore, the entropy of the universe also increases continuously day by day, and at the end it reaches the maximum value, and that is called as the fourth different form. So you have written for three things now. A place is there, at that point only you write the fourth one. It says that entropy of the universe increases continuously. Entropy of the universe increases continuously, and it reaches the maximum value. And at the end, it reaches the maximum value. Entropy of the universe increases continuously, and at the end, it reaches the maximum value. That is about the fourth difference. This is the important one. And when you combine the first and second laws, that is called as a summation of first and second laws. Summation of first and second laws. What first law says that we have to combine it, and we have to say that law, that is called as a summation of first. What the first law of thermodynamics says that in the universe, energy neither can be created nor can be destroyed. It will be transferred only from the one form to the another form. Or you can say in simple words, the total energy of the universe remains constant. Whereas the second law says that second law in terms of entropy says that always the entropy of the universe increases continuously and reaches the maximum value at the end. And this is called as the combination or the summation of the first and second laws. It says that energy of the universe remains constant. The total energy of the universe remains constant, whereas the entropy of the universe increases continuously, and at the end it reaches the maximum value. This you have to say in sentence form. Raskondi, the total, it says that the total energy of the universe remains constant. The total energy of the universe remains constant, whereas the entropy of the universe increases continuously. Entropy of the universe increases continuously. Entropy of the universe increases continuously, and at the end it reaches the maximum value. At the end it reaches the maximum value. Next. So with this I have completed about the entropy part. Next one is that is Helmholtz free energy. From this, one question has come in the 2019, I think. 2019 lo vachina question based on this Helmholtz free energy. And which topic it is about spontaneity they have asked. What is Helmholtz free energy? It is also called as work function. In simple words, this is also called as a work function represented by symbol A. Okay, there is no specific definition. It is directly defined by the equation only. Directly defined by the equation. That is A is equals to E minus Ts. E minus Ts. E is internal, E and U. U minus Ts. Where U is internal energy, T is temperature, and S is entropy. Okay, now all these three things are state function. Therefore, A is also a state function. A is also a state function, so you can calculate only change but not the absolute value. When you calculate a change, therefore you can write change in work function. Change in work function. Delta A is equal to how much? Delta U minus T delta S. Delta A is equal to delta U minus T delta S, or you can write dA is equal to du minus TdS. For the small changes, I have converted the equation in terms of small changes. Okay, and dA is equal to how much? It is du minus TdS. And in this one more equation, you have to remember when you substitute du value from the first law of thermodynamics and ds value into the equation, finally you'll get the equation as delta A is equal to minus W max. Or you can write this equation minus delta A is equal to. Remember one thing that A comes at, U comes at constant volume, is it right? And this is at constant temperature. So, this is the important one. A comes at constant temperature and volume. దీనిలోంచే question అడిగారు మిమ్మల్ని. A comes at constant temperature and volume because internal energy comes at constant volume. And this temperature remains constant here while calculating delta A. Delta A is equal to delta U minus C delta S minus W. Delta A is W maximum. What is that W maximum? Maximum work done. Maximum work done. So this is about Helmholtz free energy. And the second one is that is Gibbs free energy. Gibbs free energy, it is G. And like this Helmholtz free energy, Gibbs free energy is also defined by the equation H minus Ts. These three are state function, therefore this is also a state function, so you can calculate only change in Gibbs free energy. This delta G is equal to how much? Comes at constant temperature, constant pressure, delta H minus T delta S. Delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S. And always this delta G or G comes at constant temperature and pressure. This is at constant temperature and volume. This is constant temperature and pressure. And after substituting all the values of delta H and delta S, finally the equation becomes like this: minus delta G is equal to W maximum minus P. Just you remember the equation. Minus delta G is equal to how much? W maximum minus P delta V. Okay. And in this two more equations you remember it. One is dou G by dou T at a constant pressure. Dou G by dou T at constant pressure is minus S. Dou G by dou P at constant temperature is. Just you remember these two equations. Okay, na? I don't think so this will come, but if they ask you, just you remember the equations. Okay. And the next one is Gibbs-Helmholtz equation. Just you remember the equation, ma? Gibbs-Helmholtz equation. And that equation is delta G is equal to delta H plus T into dou delta G this is called as Gibbs-Helmholtz equation. Chapter Mottam up to MSc I can teach you without looking at the notes or without looking at the textbook, anything. But you should have some patience and I should have some energy to explain you all these things, okay? So this is about Gibbs-Helmholtz equation. But the thing that you have to remember is about the spontaneity. So you conditions go to medical. Spontaneity and the spontaneity comes only in the irreversible process. Whenever you are discussing about the spontaneity, the changes that is taking place in the spontaneous process are in the irreversible process. ఇందులోంచే questions వస్తున్నాయి చూసుకో. Spontaneity is nothing but it is the changes that are taking place in the spontaneous process are in the irreversible process. Spontaneity of the process. I'll tell you the conditions, just you remember the conditions now, okay? Na? And the spontaneity are in the irreversible process always. Okay. Delta H, delta S, delta H. At all temperatures, delta H is negative. I didn't tell you about the entropy, Gadama. One thing I forgot to tell you about the entropy thing. Always this entropy, just you write it. Before this only you write it. Always this, I'll forget the things somewhat. Always this entropy is what this entropy measures in the system. It measures the randomness in the system. Always entropy measures randomness. The entropy is regarded as a measure of randomness. Because as the randomness increases, entropy increases. As the randomness increases in the system, entropy also increases. Because of that reason only, if you take solids, liquids, and gases, which will have more entropy, దేంట్లో ఎక్కువ randomness ఉంటుంది? Which compounds will have very good. Therefore, solids will have less entropy. Liquids will have less entropy compared to gas. That means gases will have higher entropy compared to liquids, compared to solids. Wait a minute, ma. I'm attending a call. Okay. Sorry, ma. Okay. So always gases will have Raskondi, you write the thing. Because from this only you are going to derive, you can say about the third law of thermodynamics also. Though it is not there in your syllabus, using this order, you can say what is third law of thermodynamics also. See here, the gases are having higher entropy compared to liquids, compared to solids. And the randomness will be very high in the gases because all the particles are in zigzag motion. Automatically, the randomness will be more. The gases will have higher entropy. Whereas if you see liquids, in that liquids, the molecules are not systematic, even though they are not systematically arranged, but some randomness will be there in the liquids. So there also the entropy will be there. But if you see solids, this is the important one. If you see solid, if in any solid substance, what will happen? All the particles are very systematically arranged. Is it right? There should not be any randomness. So you can say that the entropy of any solid substance, delta S, entropy of any solid substance, you can say it is delta S is equals to 0. That is called as the third law of thermodynamics. That is called as third law of thermodynamics. It says that the entropy of all solid substances may become 0 at a 0 Kelvin. May become 0 at a 0 Kelvin. This 0 Kelvin and chala mandiki televadu, 0 Kelvin is nothing but minus 273 degrees centigrade. 0 Kelvin means this is called as absolute temperature, that is 0 Kelvin, and this is at minus 273 degrees centigrade. This is called as third law. The third law of thermodynamics says that at 0 Kelvin or at minus 273 degrees centigrade, the entropy of all solid substances may become 0, because at that temperature all the particles are very systematically arranged. There should not be any randomness in the system. You can say that entropy of all solid substances may become 0. That is called as the third law of thermodynamics. I forgot. Okay, na? Right. Okay. So in the spontaneous process, what is delta S? In the irreversible process, what is delta S? Is it positive or negative? Positive or negative or zero now? Which is correct? Because spontaneity we are discussing, no, what is delta S value? It is positive. That you remember it, ma'am. And the delta G is negative. It is good to put. Delta G is negative. Okay, na? For the spontaneous. This is for the spontaneous process. You can Rastan good to put only. At all temperatures. At all temperatures. If they mention the temperature also, it will be different. Okay, I'll tell you. So spontaneity at all temperatures. Okay, na? And for the non-spontaneity, delta G becomes a positive, and always this becomes a positive, and this becomes positive. Wow. For the non-spontaneity, it becomes negative only, no? Spontaneity, it becomes positive. For the non-spontaneity, it becomes negative. Positive, negative, positive. This is for non-spontaneity at all temperatures. Then if you see the spontaneity at low temperature, spontaneity at low temperature, this becomes a negative. This becomes a negative, important one. Low temperature means the temperature is decreasing, therefore the randomness decreases, therefore it becomes negative. This also becomes negative. Spontaneity at low temperature. Then next one. Spontaneity at higher temperature. Spontaneity at higher temperature. This is positive, and this is negative. Because as the temperature increases, this also increases. This is spontaneity at high temperature. So this you remember all these things. Okay, na? Spontaneity at low temperature, at high temperature, non-spontaneity conditions at all temperatures, and spontaneity conditions at all temperatures. So with this I have completed your topic. Okay? Any doubts? Ramesh sir? Wait a minute, ma. Ramesh sir? Ramesh sir, class అయిపోయింది సార్ అన్మ్యూట్ చేసుకోండి. Any doubts, ma? Any doubts? Unmute yourself, ma. Sir, unmute చేశారు అందరినీ కూడా. ఇష్టం ఉన్న వాళ్ళు మాట్లాడకండి. If you have any doubt, you can ask. No need of saying thank you, ma. I should say thank you for giving me this opportunity, especially from the Kakatiya Degree College. I should say thank you to Ramesh sir and the faculty of chemistry faculty of the KGC, and thank you very much. Sir, Satyam sir. Hello. Okay, if the time is there in the next class, I'll discuss some questions that has come in the previous exams. Okay, thank you, ma. Thank you. I'm ending. I'm leaving.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, sir.